First of all, it's a great honor and pleasure to be here with you, and thank you, Pascal, for being with us. If you don't mind, Le Conversazioni is a very informal kind of festival. I hope you don't mind if I start from a question which I was not thinking to pose until 2 minutes ago. Since one of your book was adapted into a film, I'm not asking you to comment on the film, but do you think that the director should be faithful or betray the original source?
Well, if he's good, he can betray. If he's not good, he has to be faithful. And in this case, it's not Polanski's best movie. He made better ones, but it was not a bad movie. And for me, it was a great opportunity to spread the book, spread out the book all over the world. So it was translated in about 35 countries afterwards.
Did you follow the shooting and did you participate in the screenplay, or did you work closely to Polanski, or?
Yes, I followed the shooting, and I was asked my opinion about the script. So I gave my opinion, and of course Polanski didn't take it into account. He said, very good, interesting, and then he dropped it on his desk. And well, anyway, I'm not very familiar with movie shooting and movie scripts, but anyway, it was a nice adventure. It was a very exciting adventure. We had many nights on shootings in Paris, and you know, a writer's work is very solitary, and being with a team is so exciting. Especially we went to Boulogne studios, where they had recreated a fake boat. You know, a fake boat on I don't know how to say in English, like you know, when you sleep on a bed, you have those. Maybe, yeah. Des ressorts. Springs, yes, hydraulic springs. And so we were on a boat, which was a fake one, and it was moving, and it was a rocky day. It was supposed to be a rocky day that was quite funny, and no, it was a great adventure.
In 18 years, we had approximately 400 guests, 180 of them in Capri, where we founded the festival. And I asked all my guests in Capri the same question. Do you think that cinema is an inferior form of language compared to literature, or a different form of language? Before you answer, I can tell you that 179 say literature is so much better, so much important. One say the opposite. I'll tell you at the end who say the opposite. What do you think?
No, I think it's a different form of language. You can like genres that are very different. You know, I love literature, but I would be very unhappy if cinema didn't exist. So we need both, and we need painting, we need screenplay, we need playwrights. So we don't have to praise one genre at the detriment of the others. We can love them all, and the interaction between all those genres, cinema, literature, is much more exciting than trying to establish a hierarchy.
Did you ever consider to direct, or do you become a filmmaker?
No, not really. I know many of my friends did that. Like Frédéric Becbédé,
Emmanuel Carrère.
Emmanuel Carrère, I know, it's quite a challenge. Well, maybe I should try, but I think it would cost a lot of money to the producer. But no, I never considered, I would like to write theater plays.
By the way, the writer who said that cinema is much better is Chuck Palahniuk from Fight Club.
What is it?
He said that cinema is better, the movies are better than the books.
Yes.
It's his idea.
Who says that?
Chuck Palahniuk.
Yeah.
And he was very serious. He was not joking. So, as you know, this year's theme is the journey, and I want to start from a quote by Jack Kerouac on the road. He wrote, "Our battered suitcases were piled on the sidewalk again. We had no longer ways to go, but no matter. The road is life." Do you agree? The road is life.
Well, I agree. I don't know. I have no choice.
The journey is life. I mean, life is a journey.
Well, life is a journey with many different paths, And I think a good life is a life where you can borrow different ways and different trails without having to just follow one. So for most people, and I think in previous centuries, life was a one-way road. You couldn't escape the direction which was designated by your ancestor, your social class, your social status. So you became an aristocrat if you were born inside nobility. You had to be a farmer if you were born in the countryside, or a bourgeois, or a priest. You know, in our Latin countries, you know, the importance of the church, because in Catholic countries, in every family, one of the boys had to go to church. One of the boys
eventually become a priest.
Eventually become a priest, and one had to go to the army, and one was maybe praised and would receive the legacy of the father and would have a happy life. So things started to change in the 18th century, which is the century of the adventurers, when the social conditions started to be mixed. And this is, for instance, the story of Casanova, who was an ordinary man, a common man of the common, and will become the writers that we know now. He went to jail. He was received in the highest courts in Europe, and became a great writer. But the birth of democracy is precisely the way happened when people escaped their destiny and were not doomed to follow the path of their ancestors.
Do you agree with Calvino, Italo Calvino, who wrote, when you enter a city, you don't appreciate the marvels, the beauty of the city, but the answers that it gives to your questions?
Can you repeat when you enter?
When you enter a city, or if you want, of a city, you do not appreciate the beauty of it, but the answers that the city gives to your questions.
Oh my God. This is you know, the city doesn't give me any answer if I don't ask any question. So
but I'm sure you do.
Yes, so I try to let myself being transported by the beauty of the city, if the city is beautiful. And if it's not, I have a feeling of immediate repulsion, and I try to leave the city as soon as possible. But no, there might be a misunderstanding when you travel to a city which has been celebrated by many people as being the most beautiful city, and then you get into the city and you say, it's only that, nothing more, and you have the feeling to have been cheated, and so it's better not to know where you go, and then you can let yourself being carried away by not always the beauty, but the strangeness of the place where you are. And this happened to me in 1980. I flew to Bombay in India. It was my first time in India. And I remember my enthusiasm. I was with a friend. We slept at the YMCA. And had a feeling of ecstasy, almost ecstasy. I liked everything, and so this is a real encounter with a new city about which I had no prejudices before.
Can you tell me, instead of a disappointment, a place that was not as you expected? Not necessarily a city, a location, or...
Well...
and why, of course.
Why? So, well, I could
if you want, I can start with...
I could quote 50 cities in France. But you know, the first impression is not a good one. We make a lot of mistakes in our life. We may dislike a person which turns out to be a very nice person because just we had, as I said, prejudices. And it's the same for countries. There are some countries which I dislike a priori, and then I turn out to be more favorable to this city. So which city I didn't like? Berlin, for instance. Yes, very good. And I still don't like it, in spite of the fact. I still don't like it, in spite of the fact that people are very nice there. But you know, it's too modern. It's too chaotic, and I don't speak German, by the way, so it's more difficult for me. Yes, yes, Berlin, for instance, and
on the other hand, a place that was surprisingly beautiful and good, and over your expectations.
Above my expectations, I don't know. Amsterdam, for instance, Madrid. Of course, Italian cities. You know,
I was trying to go there.
Yes, yes. Oh, they're too beautiful to be disdained. But Palermo, yes, Palermo. I've been many times to Palermo, and I always find it a little frightening. But probably because I didn't get into the right neighborhood, or maybe with the right persons. But you feel cities like you feel persons. It's exactly the same kind of perception, in my opinion.
Milan Kundera wrote once that the most beautiful and exciting moment is the moment that precedes, that is before the journey. The excitement to reach a place, more than really reaching the place. Do you agree with that?
No, not at all. You know, Clemenceau said that the best moment in love is when you climb up the stairs.
Yeah.
It refers to French escalier, where you have, you know, when the elevators did not exist, yeah, and you had to climb up the stairs to meet your lover. Okay, why not? But I think the best moment is when you discover a city or a person, and when you are surprised by someone or by some place which you think you know, and in fact you don't really know this person or this city. So of course the preparation is a great moment, but the real encounter, the shock of reality and the shock of a person is much more exciting, much more wonderful, and before and after are good moments too, but during while you're doing what you have to do with a person or with the city is also a wonderful moment.
Another quote, this time from Roberto Bolaño, used to say that every place, the entire world changes every 100 meters.
That's true of New York.
It is true, yes.
But
I would say 10 meters.
Yes. It's not true of Paris, you know. No. Well, it depends. It depends if you're heading towards some place. So when you're in a hurry, it doesn't change. You just want to find your street. I was trying to find Rue du Général Camus about 15 minutes ago in the dark, and but this quotation is a quotation of a poet, and I think this attitude has been invented for the first time by the surrealists in the 20s or at the beginning of the 20th century, when Aragon, André Breton, Éluard said that unlike the critics of big cities, they say the problem is not the city itself, it's our eyes. So our eyes are poor, our eyes are dull. We have to be able to look at the wonders of a shop, of a building, of a street, and if we change our eyes, we will change the reality we are living with. And this is, for me, this is the most important part of the surrealistic revolution, which I still favor very much, in spite of the fact that the surrealist movement degenerated into a kind of a cult with a lot of excommunication and curses against each other. But in spite of that, it still remains for me a great moment of poetry an education of
Freedom, maybe?
yeah, freedom, but an education of the eyes. You know, Breton said, "Changer la vie, changer la vue, change life, change the sight." And I think it's very important. And when you're young, when you come, as I came from the French province in the 60s, which was deeply rooted into conservatism, old Catholicism, you know. Coming to Paris, I arrived in Paris in 67, was like a shock, was like an illumination. I think I can say that.
Did you feel like Lucien de Rubempré in de Balzac, or Honoré de Balzac?
Yes, but I had no ambition. I didn't want to turn rich. I didn't want to become famous. But I took the subway from Gare de Lyon to Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and then I discovered a new word for me. People kissing each other. It was September. I had never seen that in
the street.
In the street. I was living in Lyon, which is a very Catholic street, Catholic city at this time. I spent 10 years with the Jesuits, you know, which is a very good school, but not really a school of amusement and entertainment. And then I saw people from all places, people from Africa, people from China, women with miniskirts, which was at this time a total revolution. If I compare those women with my mothers or my aunts, or with the nuns I used to cross into Lyon street, so and a feeling of freedom and beauty. And this, it has been a shock, and this shock is still going on for me when I walk into Paris. I think it is still a marvelous city.
Can I ask you what was the greatest lesson that you learned from the Jesuits? I was raised by the Jesuits myself. That's why I'm curious.
Well, work, effort, the taste for literature, Greek and Latin, and what else? The curiosity for the outside world, because you know, I've found many Jesuits in India, in China, in South America, of course, as the Pope now is coming from Argentina. But where I was in a college in Lyon, and there was a kind of there were many tensions between the pupils, my fellow classmates, and it was the old church. I think the church before Vatican II.
Yep.
So you know, you heard a lot of stories going on. For instance, many bishops had adventures with ladies from the bourgeoisie. So sexual scandals also, but of course they were totally hushed. You said that?
Yes.
You didn't have to. You were not allowed to speak about that. And but well, you know. In spite of that, it has been a very, very good education, and I'm thankful to the Jesuits for helping me to grow up. And then afterwards, I went to Henri IV in Paris. So religion apart, it was exactly the same teaching, exactly the same discipline, and no, it was a very good.
You reminded me a story. Of Napoleon. By the way, don't watch the film; it's really awful. But
Yes, I heard that.
But that's another story. And as you certainly know, he was coarse, but his mother was Italian, and he had an uncle who was a cardinal. And as you certainly know, Napoleon was not exactly a friend of the church. And once he met his uncle, his mother's brother, and he said, "One day I will destroy your church." And the cardinal responded, "Not even we men were able to do that."
Yes, that's true. Yes. You know, Yes, and thanks God it's better. It's better that way. And yes, I had many opportunities to meet, to go to the Vatican and to meet cardinals. And the last one whom I met was, there were two, in Erbil, in Kurdistan. I was on a humanitarian mission for Chrétiens d'Orient, Christians from the East, for the Kurds and the Yazidis. And I was with an archbishop. He was traveling with us. And in a refugee camp, we saw a beautiful car escorted by soldiers of Peshmerga, where the Peshmerga are the Kurdish soldiers, in an Iraqi Kurdistan, and came out of the car a great cardinal with his beautiful robe and a red belt and a little hat. You know, I don't know exactly how to speak about this hat, but it was so noble. I say, oh my God, it has been going on for 2,000 years, and it will survive me probably. And then the cardinal was surrounded by many believers. They kissed his hand, and they were very happy to see him there. So he was sent by the Vatican to assist the Christian who at that time were persecuted by Daesh, ISIS. And but of course, going to the Vatican and seeing all these men in purple is, even if you're not a believer, it's quite impressive.
It is, it is.
Yes.
It is. And Saint Teresa of Avila wrote once that the feeling remains that God is in the journey too. Also, God is traveling. How do you relate to this line?
Well, you can. Well, I don't know if this is theologically fair.
This I don't know myself.
No, I don't know. Maybe you have a specialist of theology in this room. But you can say that God travels, and if you follow the Talmud, you can say also that God needs humanity to feel better and to be comforted when he is despaired. This is called in Hebrew the Timun, and it's been developed by many philosophers and by Simon Weil, who was Jewish and was converted into Christianity. And I think it's a beautiful philosophy that man is not only an inferior creature trying to pray God, but that God needs man to be helped and to be guided in this long journey. But in fact, for him, the journey is eternity. So maybe, as Woody Allen said, eternity is very long, especially at the end.
Since you mentioned,
yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I made a twist.
You mentioned Woody Allen, and you reminded me now Yiddish proverb that says, "Never ask the road to someone who knows the road, because you take the risk of not losing yourself. You should always lose yourself instead of taking exactly the road."
Yes, that is true, and that is not true. Yes, it's absolutely true. If the road is a metaphor for life, you know what's life. One of the most wonderful aspects in life is surprise, is interruption. When your career is all drawn, and that you know exactly what will be the main stages of your life, it's extremely gratifying to be diverted from your destiny and to discover something new. So in that way, your quote is absolutely true. On another hand, when I do a lot of mountain, and on another hand, if you are on a slope, and if the fog is coming down, you better not lose your road, because you can fall into a hole. And this happened to me this summer. I fell into a hole, and thanks God I didn't hurt myself. But so it depends in which area you want to lose yourself, and in which area you want to know exactly where you're going to.
I don't know when we have to start with questions from the audience. Maybe I have a couple of other questions. Okay. And the first one, going back to Christianity. the idea of journey, the journey that God Himself is taking. I think it's Christianity is centered on free will, meaning that we all have to decide what we want to do, what we want to, which road, which path we want to follow. And I think it's one of the great differences between this religion to the others. I don't know if you agree with that, between Christianity and other religions. Free will.
Well, I don't know well enough other religions, but I think every monotheism has had this equivalent messages. But of course, we know better our own religion, even if we don't. Well, personally, I'm not a believer now, but
You've been a believer before?
Well, until the age of 14. I think puberty definitely dipped me into skepticism. But anyway, that doesn't matter, because religion is a culture. It's first of all, it's a culture much more than a cult in itself. So you can be a Catholic without practicing, and maybe this is maybe the most important thing in Catholicism or Protestantism compared to other religions. But this might be true also of Judaism. You don't have to believe in God to be a Catholic or to be a Jew or to be a Protestant. You don't even have to go to the offices. Maybe Christmas or Easter. But because you know it by heart. Even nowadays, I talked to you about Iraq, where I went. That was 5 years ago, and there was a priest who was rebuilding a church which had been desecrated by ISIS, and so he was celebrating the first mass in this church since for the last 4 years. And there were many Iraqi soldiers. There were American soldiers, British, New Zealanders, and they said, "Well, the priest is celebrating the mass, and you have to take the communion," which I had not done for about 40 years at least. So I knew exactly how it worked. I knew what I had to do, so I did it. But being a Catholic is, I have a feeling, when I see a church, I say, this is my home. Wherever I find myself, I see those people, maybe I don't speak their languages, but I know they're my brothers and sisters. I know we're close. And I think it's the same feeling for Muslims or for Hindus or for Jews. Of course, the message of religion goes far beyond believing, praying, or not.
I totally agree with you. And in the Bible, the word atheist does not exist. You find either believers or idol worshippers, which is interesting. In other words, it says that you believe in something. If you don't believe in God, you believe in your body, you believe in your success, in whatever, in money, in power. And it's quite interesting that it says that you believe in something or someone.
Yes, and the question being, do you have to believe in something to go on in life? I think yes. If you don't believe in anything, if you're just a skeptical, if you're a nihilist, then the reasons to live will become very small and very tiny. But I think the most important thing is always to believe beyond yourself, because as you grow old, you find out that the person you are is just a bridge or just a moment which will be carried away by new generation, your kids, your grandchildren, the society around you. So if you don't believe in bigger ensembles than your own private person, you may be very disappointed and you may be very desperate. So yes, being a believer is important. Being a worshipper is maybe a psychological advantage, because if you worship something, the meaning of the sense of your life is before you. But when you're just a believer, you have to create every day, recreate every day the sense of your own life, which is a little bit more complicated.
I'm very intrigued and also touched by what you say about feeling somehow at home when you enter a church, considering that you are no longer a believer since many years. How do you judge the people who pray? Happy or full or, I don't know, in delusional? How do you relate to people who still believe?
Well, I don't judge him first.
I'm sure you don't judge, but...
No, but you know, most of the time in churches are mainly old people. It depends where. It's not true in Poland. It's not true in Croatia. Wherever the religion is persecuted, the churches are full or they're empty. When the society is free, many churches are empty. But when the society is persecuting religious minorities, the churches are full. So what do I think about them? Well, I always wonder what are they asking God for? What are they begging Him for? To bring them fortune, money, success. Maybe they're praying for someone they love, and but I think there are two kinds of prayers. One is a claim to God. You know, it's the illusion that you, an atom, as you said, among 8 or 9 billion human beings, you will be heard by God, who will pay attention to your prayer. You are this small, tiny person in France, and God say, "Oh my God, I will take that into consideration. That's very interesting. Let me check, and I give you my answer." And I think, of course, there is a delusion from the person who prays, man or woman, the delusion that God will listen to you and will eventually accomplish your wishes. So God being a kind of super magician. And maybe there is another way to pray. Many prayers are mechanical, you know. It's like a litany. 3 years ago, I was in a convent in the south of France for a book. And of course, I had to follow the officers from down to dusk, to nighttime, and you let yourself being caught by the rhythm of the prayer, but you don't understand it's mainly in Latin, so you don't understand the meaning, and it's like a melody. It's a way to reunite and to gather the community to all together. But I think there's another prayer which is maybe more interesting. It's a prayer which could be tantamount to an act of admiration. And I found a very good quotation by Matisse, a painter. And Matisse say, every morning, he was in south of France on the Mediterranean Sea, and he said, every morning, I go to make my prayer in front of the ocean and in front of the stones and the pine trees. So that's another interpretation for what praying may mean.
I want to close with a personal experience. 2 days ago on Sunday, my wife and I went to a church near the Louvre. I don't remember the name of the church. It's Saint Ambrose, I think. And it was in Latin. So, although I agree with you that the Vatican II, which took place in the early 60s, was an important revolution in the history of culture and in the history of Catholicism, and although I still feel that Latin was a universal language, it made me closer to the community. Because, as you know, after Vatican II, every church, every priest delivers eulogy, and the liturgy is in the language of the place. But to have a universal language was something quite moving, I must say.
Yes, you know, I read, many years ago, I read a book by Christopher Isherwood, My Guru and I. I love that book because he said exactly what I felt. He went to India, he entered an ashram, and he had a guru, of course, and the guru was reciting long verses of Upanishad in front of him, and he said, Hindi is like the Latin of my childhood. I don't get a word, but I love the rhythm and the song. And he says, that's why I used to go to churches, and that's why I like to listen to Brahmins praying in old Sanskrit. And yes, you're right. I don't like to understand exactly what the priest says, because most of the time it's quite common, you know. When you go to funerals, for instance, they always promise you will find your lost ones, you will be reunited in heaven. So okay, so I have nothing to say about that. But if it's in Latin, I say, oh my God, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe he's right, and there is a kind of poetry which you don't find in your own language, except if you run into a very eloquent priest or bishop like we had in France, and then he can transport you with his rhetoric. But most of the time, Latin is better, because you don't understand.
Let me make an example. The last words of the Mass in French are the Mass is fini, is terminé, and in Italian is la messa è finita. In Latin is ite, go, missa est, which is it's accomplished. It's much more. It's much stronger.
So you know, I never understood what it meant, but for the first time,
okay, ite missa est. It's done. It's done.
Ite missa
it is. Yeah. You know, ite missa est. Okay, I think it's time. Thank you. Thank you, Pascal. I think now there are questions. Yeah.
So we'll start the Q&A with our in-person audience, and if we have time, we'll turn it over to Zoom. Raise your hand very high, and I will bring you the microphone. And don't be shy. Someone always has to go first. Yes.
Thank you. My question is very prosaic in comparison with the wonderful questions we've heard earlier. I would be interested in hearing from both of you a few words about your favorite writer who writes in the English language, given that we are in the American Library this evening.
Okay. My favorite contemporary writer, you mean? Otherwise I would say Melville. But if you ask about contemporary writers, he passed away a few months ago, Cormac McCarthy. I think he was a giant, and his trilogy of the prairies, I think it's called like that. It's there are 3 masterpieces, in my opinion.
Well, I have so many, because I love English literature in England and in America. I would say Nathaniel Hawthorne, yes, of course. Melville, yes, you have Billy Budd and all those wonderful books. Charles Dickens, well, and Faulkner, and contemporary writers, Salman Rushdie, which I know personally, Paul Auster. I forget a lot, but I like to read Ian McEwan, which I read almost all of his books. So it changes a lot when you know the person. But I think English is one of the most beautiful languages, and in literature and in songs also. So yes, has so many. And in India also, you have wonderful. Amitav Ghosh is a great writer, and I forget a few. But sorry, your question. We'll answer your question tomorrow morning.
And before my wife divorced me, I must add Jane Austen.
Yeah, of course, Jane Austen, yes.
Other questions in the room? Yes.
Hello. Do either of you have a personal practice that you would compare to prayer?
You want to go? Always. Okay. I am a believer, so I do pray. But as an author, as a writer, I wake up very early in the morning, sometime at 5:30, generally at 6. And I write every morning between 7 and 11. every morning. I don't know if you want to compare this to prayer, but it's a discipline that it's somehow similar.
Well, I would make the same answer. I think discipline is like a spine to remain alive, and but of course it's not comparable to prayer. I think in a daily life you have moments of ordinary occupation, and sometimes you have moments of happiness. I said before, illumination, which is of course a very religious term, and but we have different moods in a day, in different moods in a week, and but prayer, if I were a believer, I think prayer would remain a very specific moment in my life. So I pray by reading, by inventing, by loving, but I think we have to keep borders between our different activities.
And if I can add, if I may add, one of the most moving moments of prayers in the entire Bible is the moment where Job is upset, is angry at God, and basically say, why you're torturing me? Why you're doing all these horrible things to me? I'm a good man. And it sounds blasphemous, but it's a real moving prayer. Because praying is being in conversation with God, even in a nasty way.
Well, I never blame God for my ills. I just blame myself, which is easier, and it's easier to answer and to try to change yourself. But of course, in Catholicism, we have confession, which is a great institution because you had first. When I was a kid, I had to invent scenes to go, but I love this moment, because it's very intimate. It's you don't see the face of the priest, and he utters in a very low voice, and you speak out your different scenes. Sometimes you make up some to feel more important, and then comes the time of the penance, and I think it's very useful. You confess your sins so that you can repeat them afterwards, because you will be forgiven in the end. Yes, and that is the main difference between Catholicism and Protestantism.
Sorry.
Yeah, in the Protestant churches, you're alone in front of God. One of the main dogmas of Protestantism, and this is very visible in America, is transparency. You have to be transparent to yourself, to the others, as you are to God. And this is absolutely different in Catholicism. I think for me, one of the main sweetness of Catholicism is a kind of lie. You lie to yourself, you lie to the others, and you will be forgiven at the end. And so the Catholic Church is very indulgent. You can make a lot of mistakes. You can lie. You can.
We are all sinners.
We're all sinners. Yes. So, as says the Gospel, there's a better reward for the one who has committed a sin and who repents than for the one who has never committed a sin. And so Catholicism is like a bank where you can ask for a lot of credit, and you will be already yes, have some more.
No interest.
Yes, yeah, no sanction, and it's very different, for instance, from the Germans, because in Germany there is a sense of guilt. You have to reimburse your debts. And we are very good in Catholic countries, Spain, France, Italy, for never paying our debts. That's our.
That's why we don't like Berlin, maybe.
That's
Berlin. We don't like Berlin.
Yes, maybe yes. Yeah.
When he was in his 20s, Billy Wilder was a journalist, and he tried to interview Sigmund Freud, and it was a disaster. Freud was upset, and he basically kicked him out of his office. And then Billy Wilder is credited to say, Psychoanalysis is a pseudo-science invented by a Jew to make the Protestants believe they're Catholics. Billy Wilder.
That's very subtle, yeah.
We have time for one more question as well.
Thank you. Well, from Protestantism to Puritanism, I recently moved to Paris from the US, San Francisco, Berkeley, and there is so much, maybe even more than, I don't know, ever before, I'm not that old, Puritanism in the US now. And I know you've written about, of course, guilt and about pleasure. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Bruckner, if you can comment on Puritanism today and how you see differences in the US and Europe.
Oh my God, that could last 1 hour. That's a big one, yes. I hope I had escaped every touchy question, but this one, I have to go. Yes, yes. After the revolution of the 60s, a wave of Puritanism is coming back to Europe, but it's coming back from the United States. So it came back through the political correctness. It came back through some sections of the feminist movement, and now it's very obvious through wokeism, which is in a way religion from campuses, and which has many common aspects with revivalism. Those Protestant churches which used to appear in the 19th and 20th century. And yes, Puritanism is, Max Weber said that Puritanism is the last heroism of the bourgeoisie, which is a very interesting point of view. I don't know exactly what he meant, but it's very interesting. But in my view, I would say that after the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s, maybe Puritanism is a ruse, a cunning, to re-energize the sexual revolution, which tend to go down. Then by re-establishing taboos and prohibition, it's a way to tell people, what you're doing is not only a habit, or it's not only easiness or conception, it's something more important. So maybe Puritanism could be, but I give you my answer bluntly. It's a ruse. You say ruse? Ruse? Yes. Of to give to sexual pleasure or amorous relationships a new density or a new gravity. I don't know if I make myself clear. No, I obviously not. Yes, no, but when everything is permitted, most things lose their values, and so when the taboo is coming back, people start to think we're going to transgress this taboo, and so maybe it is a way to give things a new importance. But anyway, to speak frankly, I'm much better in Europe than I would be in the United States if I had to live there. I lived in America for 2 years, and a part of my family lives over there. But I'm very shocked by the waves of Puritanism, which I can see in the United States, especially when you have political persons, men or women, who have to confess in public that they have cheated on their spouses. And I remember there was a black couple. It was in Chicago or maybe a Middle West city. And before they were running for offices, they both came out in front of the press and say, "Oh, the lady said I cheated on my husband. The husband said I cheated on my wife." And they say, "We're sorry. We will never do it again," of course. And so they could be elected. And this doesn't happen in France, where we have a more relaxed view of fidelity and infidelity. So in that way, I'm very French.
Thank you, Pascal.
Thank
you
Antonio.
all. Thank you all.